The next part of our tutoring routine is sentence writing. This part of the tutoring routine is found next to the number 5 on page 2 of the document. When we write sentences, we actually use several different types of words. We have the regularly spelled words that follow the patterns that we've been reinforcing with the students, but then we also have irregularly spelled words, and there are similarities and differences in how we treat both of these types of words. When we're writing a sentence and a student needs to stop and practice a regularly spelled word, we can go ahead and we can use sound boxes for that word. So we can stop, say the word, think about the sounds that we hear, count the sounds, draw the boxes, and put the letters into the boxes for each sound in order to make sure that we are spelling that word correctly using the correct match between phonemes and graphemes. If we look at this example sentence, she grabs a snack from the shelf, we have several words that are regularly spelled, where the letters spell their most common sounds. So for example, the word grabs, snack, and shelf are all regularly spelled words, where there's this consistent match between what students are hearing and the way that's being represented in writing. But this sentence also has irregularly spelled words. It has words where we have parts that we need to learn by heart. So for example, the word she, from, and the have portions that are regularly spelled, but then they have other parts that are irregular that aren't matching those sound spelling patterns the way that we think that they should. We call these heart words. Irregularly spelled words are what we used to call rule breakers, but really they have parts that are just spelled differently than what's expected. They're still partially decodable. When we're supporting kids with irregular words, we want to make sure that, that we draw attention to the letter or the letters that don't follow the regular phonetic rules, because those parts are the parts that have to be learned by heart. So we really need to help them to notice what they're hearing and how that matches what they're seeing. So for example, in the word said, we hear ed, said, and we would point out that the sound is being spelled by AI. That's the part that we have to know by heart, because we wouldn't expect for AI to say we would expect for it to spell the A sound, but that's not how this is being represented in the word said. So that's how we deal with the irregular part, but we still want to focus on connecting what students are hearing to what they're seeing within the word. So we want to connect those letters to the sounds that they're representing. We want to help the child to listen to the phonemes in the word and to recognize how those sounds are being spelled with letters. Now, one routine that can be super helpful for students when you are doing sentence writing is to take the writing space and to divide it into 2 different parts. And this might be 2 separate sheets of paper, 2 separate whiteboards, or it might be a whiteboard that's just been divided in half. Or right here, you have a notebook that's been turned on its side where the back of the one paper becomes the practice space, and then the other sheet of paper becomes the place where they do this perfect writing. And what this does is it creates this space where we can really be messy, where we can get our thinking down, where we can do lots and lots of practice. And then as well, it creates this space where we can have a perfect example, a perfect published piece, right? So in that top space, we're able to use sound boxes to break apart words that are decodable. We're also able to write our heart words multiple times all over the page. So I could write the word have in the corner and over on the right-hand side and teeny tiny on the bottom in order to practice it multiple times. And each time I'm practicing those sounds, have, and then I'm reminding myself that I need a silent E. And I can practice that all over the page. But then for my words that are decodable, I just need to get those into sound boxes to make sure that I'm getting all the sounds down. I need to practice writing it like a word, and then I need to bring it down into my writing. So we can have this practice space, and then we can have this space where now we're actually publishing or writing the sentence. A lot of times what we see happening is that we just skip right to the publish, to writing the sentence, but really what the child needs is to stop and to have some practice with those words. So this practice space creates a place for that. To support the sentence writing part of the tutoring routine, you are going to need to have something that kids can write with. So that might be a whiteboard and a dry erase marker, or it could be a notebook like you see on the screen. And then as well, you need a sentence that follows the pattern that the student needs practice with. So if we're working on SH to spell sh, then you want a sentence that has lots of examples of words with the sh at the beginning and at the end of the word for students to write. You can find that sentence within the UFly Foundations manual, or you can find it on the UFly Home Support page that's within the Middle School UFly Foundations Home Support book. So now we're back to our tutoring routine, and we are going to take a look at write sentences next to the number 5 on page 2 of the document. You'll notice that this part of the routine should take you about 7 minutes, and we're using UFly Step 8 Connected Text, Spell, in order to practice writing sentences. So under that portion, you'll see several different sentences that you can choose from. Some are longer, some are shorter. So you'll pick the one that you just think is most appropriate for the child that you're working with, and you might even get to 2 sentences depending on your time. And within this portion of the routine, we're going to continue to use sound boxes as needed to encode those regularly spelled words. And then we'll give kiddos the opportunity to practice the irregularly spelled words in multiple places before they put them into the sentence. I want to give you the chance to see what this portion of the tutoring routine looks like. So we're going to practice it with an example from Step 8 Connected Text from this lesson. So the example is, let's do we went on a ship. We went on a ship. But instead of we went on a ship, let's do we went on the ship, because a lot of students might have issues with the word the. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my whiteboard and I'm going to divide it in half so that I have a space that I can practice and I have a space where I can actually write my sentence. And this is my practice part and this is my published part. So the first thing that we're going to write is the word we, and I would say to the child, we. Do you know how to spell we? And they would say, yeah, I do. Okay, go ahead and put it right down here in the published part and make sure you use a capital letter. And we would write the word we with a capital W. We went. Now, went is it's a high frequency word. It's a word that's used a lot within stories, but at the same time, it's decodable. So in this word, every letter spells its most frequent sound. So watch this. Let's try this again. Went, went. So we hear 4 sounds. So we're going to draw 4 boxes. And went. And then we're going to go in and we're going to write our letters. So is W, is E, N, T. Went. And then I'm going to write it underneath. Went. Went. And went is a high frequency word, so I'm going to do something a little weird with this because it's a word that appears a lot in text. I'm going to have them practice it in a couple of places. So I'm going to write went down here in the corner. Went. And I'm going to tell them to write it in the circle. Went. Went. And then I'm going to tell them to put it in a sentence. We went. Went. We went on. They can spell on, so they're just going to put that in there. On the. Now, the is a word that they may not know by heart yet. It's kind of tricky. So we're going to have them write it in multiple places up here. So the first place that we're going to do it is we're going to show it to them, and they're going to write it in the middle. So T-H-E, the. And then I'm going to say, okay, put it up here on this line, the. And they're going to write T-H-E. And then I might say, okay, we love this word, so let's put it in our heart. Let's put it down here in our heart. Ready? T-H-E, the. So now we've practiced this word in multiple places because this is a high frequency word that appears a lot in text. So now we're going to add it to our sentence. We went on the, and the last word is ship. Now ship is a decodable word. We're going to go ahead and we're going to say the sounds. Ready? Sh, ip, ship. How many sounds? 3. How many boxes? 3. Let's put it right here. Ready? Sh, ip, ship. And now we're going to add our sounds to the boxes. So sh, is S-H, it is I, P is P, ship. I'm gonna write it underneath like a word, ship. Now I practiced it twice, and now I'm gonna put it into the sentence. We went on the ship. Ship. We went on the ship. Now we need a period. Then I might even say to them, say it like you're excited. Ready? Like it needs an exclamation mark. Read it like that. Ready? We went on the ship. The You Fly Home practice sheets also have sentences with examples of words that follow the pattern. So you can see that those are found in the bottom corner of the You Fly Home practice page. And you could do either of the sentence, the easier one, the harder one, or you could do both sentences with the student that you're working with. And again, you would want to give them a space where they can practice the words, whether they're taking them to sound boxes or whether they're just writing them all over the page, and then a place where they can actually like publish that sentence and write it perfectly.